Hi everyone, this is David Larson. I'm the Associate Chair for Performance Improvement in the Department of Radiology at Stanford University, and this is the Radiology Improvement Team Education Program. Today's topic is spreading improvements. As we come toward the end of your improvement project, let's think about the project and how it started in the first place. In the Stanford operating system, through our management system, we're solving problems on a daily basis. However, some problems require more time, effort, coordination, and resources than are possible with the daily management system. And that's where the improvement system kicked in. So we assembled a team, your team, and you worked on solving the problem in your local environment. You defined the problem, measured performance, observed and evaluated your process, and found the root causes. Then you came up with ideas for changes and tested and refined them until you found a set of changes that made a difference. Then you embedded your changes into the daily work to make them stick and handed it back to the management system. So congratulations, you've completed an improvement project. Now, you may have wanted to improve performance throughout the entire department, but when you started the improvement project, you didn't know exactly what it was going to take. So chances are that you decided to focus your improvements on a single unit to limit the people affected by your tests while you were learning. During that time, you and your team developed a great deal of knowledge about what works and what doesn't, and if you were successful, then the people working in that area joined you on that journey, and however bumpy it may have been, you arrived at your destination together. Now that you've been successful in one area, you're going to want to do the same thing in other areas. You might call this rollout or implementation, but in quality improvement, we refer to this as spread. A spread project is different than an improvement project in some fundamental ways. In an improvement project, you know your current performance and you have a target performance, and while you may have some ideas about what it will take to achieve that level of performance, you don't know exactly what it will take, so you have to do a series of trials and tests and refine your methods until you come up with a bundle of changes that lead to the desired performance. A spread project, on the other hand, is a type of implementation project. You've already demonstrated what works in the local area. Now you need to get it in practice across the organization. Make sure that the desired results are obtained in each area, and then sustain the results. In order for a project to be considered a spread project, first you need to have demonstrated that the interventions have achieved success somewhere in your organization, and second, the locations you're spreading to must be similar to the locations where it has already been implemented. If your project doesn't meet these two criteria, then you may be looking at a separate improvement project rather than a spread project. Okay, here's a question for you. Have you ever been part of an implementation project? If not, you may not recognize all the work that goes on behind the scenes to organize and coordinate efforts to make a change that affects a large number of people. Think of implementing a new software application, such as a new PACS, for example. No one would even consider just installing a new PACS over the weekend, and then when everybody shows up for work on Monday, expecting people to just use it. A PACS implementation requires over a year of planning with a specified go-live date, with project phases built around that date. While your spread project may not be as large as a new PACS, it still requires solid preparation and planning. Do you know who this person is? Unless you were raised under a rock, you know this is Luke Skywalker, the last of the Jedi Knights, except of course for Princess Leia, who, as it turns out, is Luke's sister and also possesses similar power, though she doesn't yet realize it. But of course, you already knew that. Okay, do you know who this person is? What about this person? Or this person? Okay, what about this person? Or this person? Chances are you know who all of these individuals are. Now, why are all of these figures so compelling? It's because we've all been on a journey with them. When we first got to know them, they were in a position of obscurity. They were then presented with a monumental challenge, overcame adversity despite overwhelming odds, and emerged triumphant and glorious. And because we shared that journey with them, we can identify with them. Now, improvement project is similar. It's full of uncertainty at first, but it's extremely gratifying when we work together to overcome those difficult obstacles. We develop a passion for the topic, and we come to view it in a different way than we used to. However, it's easy to forget that those who have not been on this journey with us do not have the same perspective. We may think that now that we've gone through this effort to discover a better way to work, that others will immediately jump on board. Not so. They need to go through the journey as well. Perhaps their journey won't be as extensive as ours, but it's a journey nonetheless. This is the Gauley River in Nicholas County, West Virginia. It's the home to some of the most intense whitewater rafting in North America. I've been down it twice, and I will say that if you're looking for a thrilling whitewater experience, the Gauley River will not disappoint. The National Park Service reports that every year over 60,000 people float the Gauley. It's been well traveled and is well understood. Wikipedia lists all its major rapids. There are several rafting companies who operate on the Gauley who have mapped it out, provide guides and a meal, and even have people to take pictures as you go along. Now, the fact that the river has been floated more than 1 million times before me did not lessen my own experience. In fact, because I had a guide and good planning supporting me, I was free to experience the river while experiencing mere terror rather than in a complete panic-induced paralysis. If you have successfully completed a quality improvement project, then you've navigated the treacherous waters of change. You already have a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't, and your experience will be invaluable to you as you prepare others to navigate the same waters. But just like a good outfitter, you need to plan the journey well so that it goes as smoothly as possible. Like most projects, a spread project has a beginning, goes through multiple phases, and has an ending. The general phases of a spread project are initiation, preparation, launch, support, transition, and sustain. A spread project should begin by defining the project and establishing a team. The team leader is often the same person who led the improvement project, but not necessarily. The team membership should include representatives from at least some of the areas that will be affected. It should have managers or supervisors as well as frontline staff. The project leader should draft a charter, which should state the improvement that is to be spread, the people and departments that will be affected, the timeline, and provide an overview of the bundle of interventions that were successful in the improvement project that will now be spread. Once the team is assembled and the charter is drafted and agreed upon, the project begins in earnest with the preparation phase. This is the most important phase of the project and the one that is most commonly underestimated. This phase requires a lot of work, but doing it well will more than pay for itself. Here's a checklist for planning in the preparation phase. People. This refers to the frontline staff who will be required to do something in a different way than they did before. Start by creating a list of all those people, and you'll use that list throughout the project. System changes. If a new piece of equipment or a new piece of hardware or software needs to be installed, either get it installed if it functions entirely behind the scenes, or plan for its rollout along with the project launch. If the change will require changes in positions, job descriptions, or other personnel matters, get it worked out with HR beforehand. Process changes. If a new process needs to be followed, you need to make sure it is well mapped out. Since a process map can be tedious to read, I recommend creating a video of the process. The desired outcome. Frontline staff often are not used to critically evaluating the results of their individual work. If you want their work to look a certain way, you need to specify what it is supposed to look like in detail. Procedure or skill changes. Not only should you state what their final product should look like, but you should also provide tips and tricks as to how to make the product look like that. Education material. Since this will be new to the staff you're introducing it to, you'll need to teach them about it. Before you start, prepare any needed educational materials such as PowerPoints, written materials, and email notifications. Change management strategy. Change is hard for individuals and can create a lot of hard feelings in an organization if not done well. You need to have a specific strategy to help people through the changes. Your first task is to make a compelling case for the change. Share with them why this is so important in the care of patients. Show the results of the improvement project conducted elsewhere. Prepare and share their group performance data to gently illustrate how they're not performing to the same level of their peers where the improvement project took place. Also, make sure all the managers are on board and visibly supportive. Finally, remember that it is almost always better to over-communicate than to under-communicate. Trainers and coaches. Improvement does not happen through osmosis. You will need dedicated individuals with protected time to be out on the workplace monitoring, coaching, and providing feedback. Group monitoring and feedback mechanism. Once the project starts, you're going to need to carefully monitor the group's progress and provide feedback to the group about how they're doing. This likely will require audit and communication tools like spreadsheets, feedback documents, and emails. Set those up before you start. Collect baseline data before the launch. Individual monitoring and feedback mechanism. As the group moves along, you'll need to start providing individuals feedback about their performance. You'll need a place to track performance information, make the individual's performance visible relative to the group, and translate it into individual feedback. In addition to these elements, make sure you've developed, implemented, and tested the following tools before you start: a personnel list, auditing and performance measurement tools, charts and graphs, a weekly newsletter or other way to convey information on a regular basis, and a notification system both for the group and for individuals. Again, the preparation phase is the most important part of a spread project. If you do it well, the rest of the project will usually move relatively smoothly. Next is the launch phase. Set a date for a formal launch throughout the department. If this will constitute a major change, you should give people some advance warning that the change is coming and that you will be explaining it in more detail at the project launch. For smaller changes, you can just announce it during the week of the launch. The launch phase lasts for about a week. This phase has two objectives: communicate a compelling case for the need to change and provide people the information and support needed to make the change. To convey the compelling case, you might have a series of extended huddles or unit meetings, though it's generally better to do this in multiple small environments rather than in one big meeting, since it will allow people to feel more free to ask questions. You may want to show a slide presentation or video. You should have senior leadership there to the extent possible. The point is to convey the organizational commitment to the change. This is also the time to provide education and training. You might do this through a presentation or hands-on training or practice. You should keep track to make sure everyone on your list gets the message. Try to keep the launch as positive as possible. Be very forgiving of mistakes, lapses into old behavior, and even expressions of frustration and skepticism. Respond by affirming their frustration, but ask them to give the new process a try. As legitimate problems and concerns are raised, address them immediately. The next few weeks are focused on helping individuals adopt new behavior in a supportive way. This should be as group-focused and supportive as possible. Reminders should be given regularly at huddles. Group performance should be discussed, including data, on a regular basis. Any excuse possible should be found to celebrate small, early improvements with positive reinforcement. A newsletter should be published on a weekly basis, showing data on performance, answering frequently asked questions, and to provide tips and tricks to the most commonly encountered problems. Coaches and trainers need to be readily available for any individual questions. While individual performance should be monitored behind the scenes, I recommend not providing individual feedback on individual performance data at this stage. For now, it's all about group performance. Leaders should still be very forgiving of mistakes made by well-intentioned individuals and should work quickly to address legitimate problems. However, while they should still tolerate some grumbling, their tolerance for skepticism and negativity that undermine the project should gradually start to diminish. The transition phase is where the change becomes the new norm. At this stage, you should provide feedback on individual performance data and how it compares to the average. That feedback should be accompanied with specific coaching on tips and tricks to improve performance. At this stage, individual accountability is increased. If individual performance continues to lag behind, then those individuals should receive more dedicated coaching. Complaining about the new process is tolerated less and less, especially by managers and leaders. Whereas expressions of skepticism and frustration were understandable at first, as the process becomes the new norm, these expressions serve to disrupt the operations of the department. Individuals who continue in this behavior should be pulled aside by their managers and corrected in a gentle but firm manner. By the end of the transition period, the change should be the new normal. The sustained plan for a spread project is the same as the sustained plan for an improvement project. It should include high reliability mechanisms, regular checks, feedback mechanisms, and leader standard work. If it requires individual auditing, then you will need to make sure that you have that on an ongoing process. Results of that auditing might be incorporated into a performance evaluation. In this respect, a spread project is no different than an improvement project, so you can just use the same sustained strategy that you employed for the improvement project. This has been a very brief introduction to spread projects. In summary, spread projects are different than improvement projects and required a dedicated strategy. The more dedicated preparation and planning you do up front, the more likely you are to be successful. Have everything ready before you launch. At the launch, make a compelling case and give people the information they need to be successful. In the support phase, be positive and forgiving and aim feedback toward the group. In the transition phase, move toward individual feedback, coaching, and accountability and be less tolerant of dissent. And in the sustain phase, make the change the new normal using all the sustainability techniques you've already learned. In short, change is a journey, and you need to help people through it. During the improvement project, you and your team were explorers, which required a certain set of skills. During a spread project, you and your team return back to the same territory, but this time as guides for others. To do this, you need to develop a different set of skills and techniques. But as you do this, you'll enjoy it, and you will provide a great service to those whom you guide. Thank you for watching. This is David Larson with the Radiology Improvement Team Education Program.